This is Margaret Meloni, and welcome to the Death Dhamma Podcast. Open and honest discussions with wise and skillful teachers about their experiences with life, death, and Buddhism. If you wonder how others on the path have dealt with death and dying and grief, be sure to listen in. Everyone has a story, a perspective, and a valuable lesson to share. Embrace death, live a full life, and learn to love impermanence, because as my dear father used to say, nobody gets out of this alive. Hi, it's Margaret Meloni, and this is a follow-up to our first episode of the Death Dhamma Podcast, where I got to speak with the amazing Noel Alumit. And this is what I like to call Death Dhamma Ahas. So say that 3 times fast. And this is our opportunity to zero in on some key points and for me to share with you some of the things I learned from being able to have a discussion with someone as wise and wonderful as Noel. Before I dive in, since this is our first time working together, I thought I'd share a little bit about myself. Who is this death-obsessed person? Well, I'm not really death-obsessed, but I do see the importance of how learning to live with death gives us better lives overall. And my street cred, if I can say it that way, is having seen some of my family members through their deaths over a period of about 4 years. I lost my mother-in-law, my father, my mother, and my husband. And I'm not morbid bragging, because lots of people who have had lots more death, lots more quickly, and possibly in much more traumatic ways. But what I learned on that path was how unprepared people could be for death, and I think how important it is to recognize it and to talk about it, and how much Buddhism helped me. I'm not going to tell you it was easy, because it wasn't, but I am going to tell you that Buddhism really helped lead me through my intense period of grieving. And now I work in what I like to call death awareness, and that's where this podcast has come from. It's where my first book, Carpooling with Death, How Living with Death Will Make You Stronger, Wiser, and Fearless, available on Amazon. That's my shameless plug, everyone. That's where that came from. And from that sprang the idea of, now that I've discussed my experience with death, why don't I reach out to some other Buddhists and find out their experiences with death? And from that came this podcast, and hopefully to be released this year, the upcoming book, Sitting with Death. And I think that's enough about me. You can definitely find more if you go to margaretmeloni.com. You can read all about me there. MargaretMeloni. Some of the key things that came up when speaking to Noel, because, Noel had that background where he was a volunteer in the hospice for AIDS back in the 90s. And we had a chance to compare then and now, because we're in a pandemic now. And some of the things that he noticed and that we discussed was about how people treat the dying. And sometimes we blame the dying. And I think that that is something that happens now. Certainly people did it to those when AIDS was new, and beyond when AIDS was new. People blamed them for being gay and getting AIDS, since that was the first population who was largely impacted. But there's this whole notion of, do we bring death on ourselves? Okay, technically you could say, yes, I have brought on my own death whenever it comes, because I am here, because I have been born into this life. And if we follow with the thought of rebirth, then I am here and I have been reborn, which means I didn't do what I needed to do in my past life in order to be a non-returner. So from that perspective, sure, I've brought on my own death. But that's not really what happens. What happens is sometimes people want to blame the person. And so we had some really good conversations about this. And, Noel was saying, yeah, even now people will say things like, well, you live in California, and so, maybe an earthquake gonna get you, and that's kind of your fault. Or what really resonated with me is, since my father, my husband, and my uncle all passed from the same kind of lung cancer, It was watching people go through this routine. I learned it so well. They'd look at you and ask, well, how old was he? First question. What did he die of? Lung cancer. Was he a smoker? Yes. In all three instances, each of them had smoked and had given it up. And I could just see, if they were not smokers, I could almost hear them go, big sigh of relief, as if they had dodged a bullet. And if they were smokers, I could see them think, oh no, I better quit. Nobody's dodging any bullets here. We're all going to die someday from something. So let's be kind in death, and let's not blame and shame people for becoming ill and dying. A couple of other things that came up. That definitely the similarities between the AIDS pandemic and COVID in terms of, here we are and we're afraid to be around people and we can't touch people and we can't be near people. And people are jumping in and helping, and some people are in denial. And, Noel tells a story of how, as a volunteer during the AIDS pandemic, they made safe sex kits. And now we hand out safe interacting with people kits, masks. So there are some things that stand the test of time in pandemics. And definitely with the challenges of not being ready for death and grieving. And when Noel was talking about one of the best things you can do for yourselves in grief is to practice radical self-compassion, which I think is something you can find Sharon Salzberg advocating as well. He remembers a time when a woman said to him that it's okay to just stop when you're grieving. It's okay to just stop. And then he repeated the phrase that she said to him, "We are human beings, not human doings." And that to me was just so amazing and insightful because it's true. And we can give ourselves permission to just be while we are experiencing death and dying and not be running and ticking off that to-do list. Another thing that Noel told me about was when he was at a Japanese funeral and the Buddhist priest was talking. And, of course, the priest was talking about impermanence and death. It was a funeral after all. But then the priest went on to say, not only will we all die, Buddhism will die too. And when Noel related that story to me, I realized, oh my gosh, I never thought about Buddhism dying. I'm very attached to my being a Buddhist and being a certain kind of Buddhist and creating this podcast where we talk about Buddhism. And one day Buddhism will be gone. And maybe it'll be called something else or we will practice something else. But Buddhism will die too. And what a great reminder for me that I still have work to do in my approach and acceptance of impermanence. And one last thing I want to share with you is when Noel said, it's okay to talk to dead people. I still talk to my dead mother and my dead father and my dead husband and occasionally my dead uncle and once in a while my dead aunt. And I love the way that he phrased it. And he said, they're still part of our life. We still have a relationship with them. And I love how he said, they're part of your team. They're on your team. So, and he was talking about his dead father and we discussed how his dead father is on Team Noel. And so my dead people and your dead friends and family, they're part of your team. And we don't have to cut that off. In speaking with them, we don't want to be attached, but we are recognizing the part of us that was attached to them, that was bound up with them. Maybe a better way to say it is we are recognizing the parts of us that have come from our relationship with them. If you haven't had a chance to listen to the episode, I hope you do because there's so much more there. I just wanted to have the opportunity to share with you. These are some of my Death Dhamma Ahas. So thank you. Bye for now. See you or hear you or speak with you on the next episode. This has been the Death Dhamma Podcast with Margaret Meloni. Thank you so much for being here. And if you liked it, please share it with your friends and your Sangha members and leave reviews. May you be well may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be free from suffering, and may you come visit me and join my community at margaretmeloni.com, MargaretMeloni, and check out Carpooling with Death, how living with death will make you stronger, wiser, and fearless. Now you can find it on Amazon in Kindle, audio, paperback, and hardback. Bye for now.